Oh, you want to play psycho killer? Can I be the helpless victim?
Cross your eyes and scream, man. Scream for your life.
Welcome, Scream Queens, Kings, and Things. Whether you're screaming at movies or the real-life stuff, I'm your host, Jenica Olin. Today, I have a special episode for you. It is one of my indie horror highlights, and I was able to interview the director-screenwriter for Cuisine de l'Apocalypse. After the world ends, one aspiring chef refuses to give up on his dreams and creates the apocalypse's first cooking show. This is a kid-friendly sci-fi horror comedy. In my conversation with Kyle Weingart, the director and writer, I ended up comparing it to Spy Kids. And he actually said that was one of his inspirations. So this is very much a family-friendly movie. This movie is a family affair. He has his entire family in it with him. I have a great conversation with him, so I hope that you enjoy it. And when we look at indie horror, always remember that if someone is sharing their creativity with us, and there's always something special with that, no matter how great the production is or any of those things. Not saying that this movie isn't great. I genuinely enjoyed this movie. I thought it was very cute. It did give me very much the vibes of Spy Kids. But when it comes to indie horror, we give grace because they don't have the budget, the millions and billions of dollars. And they're doing this because they love it. And they're telling a story because, for several reasons. And that's why I interview them, because I think it's really interesting to find out why people put all their time and energy into these projects that might never really see the light of day. They should be recognized. So hopefully you gain some appreciation for Cuisine de l'Apocalypse, and then it can be added to your list of movies to check out. It's currently streaming on Prime Video, Fossum, and Tubi.
In a world ravaged by every apocalypse imaginable, one small town starts to rebuild. And one man rises up to follow his dreams.
I present to you Paella de Marisco, Buen Provencho. It's the end of the world and I still can't get anyone to come see the show. Food matters, Gray.
Staying alive matters. And we're not gonna do that with your fancy little mini burritos.
It's called a taquito.
We got something exciting, something revolutionary.
All right, today I am talking to Kyle Weingart, right?
Yeah, that's a good job.
Thank you. About his new 2025 horror sci-fi comedy, Cuisine de l'Apocalypse. It is available to rent on Amazon, and it's very funny. So what inspired you to make this movie?
A lot of different things. One, I've always just been into apocalyptic things, just the idea of maybe getting away from a lot of the BS that we have today. Maybe that's why. But then I always loved food, and I've worked in restaurants for so long that there's nothing like a restaurant kitchen and just like how a chef feels about his food and stuff like that. I think that's the reason the Bear is so big right now. It's because that's just a very specific world that people like to go into. So I gravitated towards that, and I love comedy. And I like stupid comedy, like love Mel Brooks, love, that cheesy stuff. I kind of put all those together into this, I guess.
Yeah, zombies and comedies go really well together.
They do, yeah.
I liked how you really played on a lot of different genres within horror, like very sci-fi, all within the sci-fi world. I did see when I looked at your IMDb page, you have a film called The Waiting Game. And that seems like that was your directorial debut. And
Yes.
You've also written for television series or been part of television series.
Yeah, I work as an art director and stuff like that. Telling the story more visually, I guess, is a good way to sell it. But yeah, I've only, as far as my writing that has gotten produced, I've produced it, so I have yet to be hired to do something, but I'm hoping with some of these things that I've been able to put out that people like my work, and then it'll find me a little bit more.
Yeah. So how did creating the waiting game, how did that help you with this second project, Cuisine de l'Apocalypse?
Actually, the gentleman and it was Michael and Kiyomi Burks were a husband and wife team that invest in a lot of different things. They ended up watching the waiting game when we showed it in Missoula, Montana. So then when I was able to pitch to them, they had already seen my work. They kind of knew I knew how to tell a story and that I cared a lot about it. So that was like the big one because obviously you need money to make movies. So, but then also just in general, seeing a project through, there's a lot of projects that I've been a part of, even some that I've, produced myself that never got finished, but once we started the waiting game and I was out of school and all that, I was like, all right, that happens no more. If we start a project, we finish it. And the waiting game, even though it was so low budget and it was a very small crew, it took so much to get that thing made and so much time and kind of not giving up. It's so easy just to be like, okay, once you film it, that's like the easiest part, but putting it all together in post-production is so much. And just, yeah, I think seeing that all the way through and then getting it into some festivals, and we did okay in festivals. We got a few best features, honorary mentions and stuff like that, and some acting awards. I'm not an actor, but I did get an acting award on that film. But yeah, for me, it also just showed that we can do this thing. We don't have to, as much as I love working on crews and doing that kind of stuff, that we can also do our own thing as well and tell the story how we want to tell it, which is a little different, I think, than most people tell their stories.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much red tape, right? So it's really hard to tell a story the way you want to unless you are fronting this on your own through indie horror. And even then, if you have people who are backing you, they have a say.
Well, they have a reputation too, and especially in today's world, there's a lot, and rightfully so in a lot of respects, but where people are like, oh, I don't agree with how you live your life. I'm not going to support your stuff, and so people are really careful about that nowadays. We were really lucky with our investors for Cuisine because him and his wife love movies. They'd never invested in film before. They go to movies all the time and they're just like, we're just so tired of, I feel like we're always let down when we go to the theater. And they're like, and we think it's because there's too many people telling them how to tell the story. So they were like, we're going to stay completely out of this, do whatever you want. And they showed up on set a few different times, made a couple of cameo appearances, Michael at one point, he's like, oh, so somebody's raising a flag over New Missoula, like the American flag. I'm like, yeah. He's like, can I be the guy that does that? I want to be the one that raises the flag because he's, a patriot. And I was just like, yeah, man, of course, it's all you. Little things like that, I guess. But for the most part, they stayed completely out of it. Yeah, it was kind of a dream come true for me, be able to have such a big production going on. I mean, it was big for me. It's still SAG low budget, and just kind of have that full creative control and not have to answer to anybody else.
Yeah, so in your first feature debut, you are the main actor, correct? Do you have a cameo in Cuisine de l'Apocalypse? I can't remember if I saw you in it or not.
It's very brief, and I'm always shocked when people notice it. And it's only happened a few times, but when Laura, played by Zuzu Weingart, who is my wife of 14 years now,
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a long time doing it, but when she runs into the burning or the cabin before it's burning, her house, she pulls a picture down to look at her family, and I'm her husband in the picture. So that was literally us leaving the house in the morning and being hit up by, I don't remember if it was the production designer or who, but one of the guys from the art team was like, do we have a picture of all you guys? And we're like, yeah, on the way out the door, taking the kids to school to come so we could go to work. And I was like, oh my gosh, no, Lily, you still have your Polaroid camera, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, go get your camera. We got to take this picture real quick. Anyways, that's where I made my cameo.
Okay, so you're the dead husband.
Dead husband, yeah.
Perfect. So the movie begins with a very funny tone. Like it already sets the tone for the entire movie. I think my favorite line is in the beginning of the movie where it says, everyone had a different theory about how the apocalypse would happen. And in the end, everyone was right. And so it kind of sets it up for like, okay, what's going to happen here? It's very fun, playful, and you know that there's going to be a lot of stuff going on just based on that first sentence.
Yeah.
How did you decide on combining zombies, robots, asteroids, plague, time travel, all of that?
Um, well, I grew up in the 90s and I just love ridiculous movies, and a lot of them were serious movies, but at the same time, the first iteration of Cuisine de l'Apocalypse we made, because we made a few different proof of concepts to kind of show that, the idea to pitch and stuff like that. The first idea we made was literally just a disease. And it was, I don't know, I just was kind of bored with it. And I was like, what else can we do? And then I started playing around with, well, maybe it's robots, maybe it's zombies. And then I feel like I was just driving one day and was like, wait a second, what if it was all of them? And then I would be so free to write whatever the heck I want. And if we set the tone off with that line, like you're talking about, and everyone was right, it just sets up the tone of anything could happen. And if I needed a robot to jump in and do something stupid, I could do that. And nobody would question it because they're like, well, yeah. We even talked about dinosaurs at one time being in it, but those are much more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I did. I thought it was really funny when there's like, it's very meta, it's very aware of itself. And
Mhm.
there's a quote in there about like, it thinks it's iRobot, which
Yeah.
is a very funny reference to like the Will Smith robot
Yeah.
movie. How much CGI versus practical effects did you use?
A lot more special effects than we wanted to. We wanted to go practical because that's the way I just love that world. And I think like the Ninja Turtles back in the day, they were puppets or whatever you want to call them, suits, but they looked so awesome and they looked so real. And even though my kids will deny that, they're like, they look so fake. And I'm like, but look at your guys' Ninja Turtles. They look so much more fake. So anyways, I love
Mhm.
practical effects, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they're a lot to, take down. So we had like a few practical effects moments. Like there's the time where Andy, the android, like rips the head off of the robot, but we just did shadow gags to kind of sell that. That was a practical prop, but most of everything else was CGI after the fact, which was the hardest thing I've ever done. I didn't do the special effects. I did the video game sequences, but
Oh yeah, I
uh,
really like those too. Those were
thank you.
fun.
Yeah. Because who doesn't like a good 2D side scroller? But I can handle that kind of stuff, but once it came down to actually doing the mocap and the robots and stuff like that, that was not my world. And yeah, there ended up being about 350 VFX shots in the whole film. And yeah, that was a lot of work to just even be on my side of things where our very talented VFX artists would send me stuff and I'd be like, oh, I kind of want it to look like this though, and a lot of back and forth, a lot of notes. And yeah,
Mhm.
350 shots. It took about a year to get through them all because we're not a studio. Once the film was done, we were doing our day jobs and kind of doing this in our spare time, making time to do it too. But
So you mentioned that you were a cook. You used to be a cook. So some of the dishes are very fancy, regardless of an apocalypse or not.
Mhm.
And food is very unifying. I thought it was clever to have a chef who's trying to elevate everyone's dining experience in a dying world. Like it's very silly. Was there anyone in particular that inspired Chef John?
A lot of different people, honestly. There was a guy down in Newhall, California. His name's Chef Otto, and I worked in his. I should make this clear. I did not work as a cook in his kitchen. I was a server. But he was so passionate about his food, and he would make the most beautiful dishes, and I had such respect for that guy. So most of the dishes that John talks about in the film are his dishes, like the shakshuka, that was on the menu. He introduced that to me and all these things. But then there was a lot of Gilligan, like from Gilligan's Island, that I mixed into Chef John. And then a little bit of Michael Scott because Kevin Jack looks so much like Steve Carell. And it just kind of came out organically, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and then I've been accused quite a bit of Chef John is me in a lot of ways, where we kind of parallel our stories with me making movies and him wanting to be a chef. These are things I've always wanted to do, basically making sure I don't give up on what I'm trying to do. And we moved to California and we're in that area for 4 years. And it's a beautiful place, a lot of great people. But in the end, everybody that kind of like believed in me and supported me was always back home. And I didn't realize it until somebody brought it up in a podcast. They're like, I kind of told them how, oh, I moved down there and then moved back. They're like, so you literally are Chef John. You did all that. You went down trying to chase your dreams down in California and find out it wasn't quite what you were looking for. And then you came home and found this huge support system. And I'm like, yeah, I guess that is kind of how it goes. So yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because he has to go on his journey to find out exactly if there is something for him over there. And when he realizes that it's not, he comes back and yeah.
Mhm.
I really liked the villain character.
Mm.
She was very funny and she was like the motherboard, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so I enjoyed the fact that she was like in the television at one point too.
So we had made a local casting choice who was very talented, would have done a great job, but we were looking for some people to kind of elevate what we were trying to do as far as name recognition goes.
Mhm.
And we had always had Natasha in mind, but there was a few other ones because I still consider this my directorial debut, even though we did the waiting game. That was kind of no budget, you know. This has budget, so I wasn't sure who we'd be able to get. We reached out to a lot of different people. And then at one point, one of our producers was like, oh, Natasha responded. And I'm like, that's great. Let's see. But I wasn't confident. But then she signed on. And luckily, we had shot in all the stuff that she had to interact with already. So we knew what the eye lines were going to be. So when it came time to, film all her scenes on the white wall, we were able to like show her. We didn't have a robot or anything to show her, but we were kind of able to show her what she's reacting to and where she needed to be looking. Yeah, we shot all that in about, I want to say like 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, we only had her on set for 2 days, which is kind of crazy knowing how much of the movie she ended up being in as a robot. I think probably her getting the chance to be a big villain robot, probably there's not too many of those anymore, I guess.
Yeah. When it came to the character-driven storytelling, how did you balance like the dynamics between the characters and then the comedic elements?
So when I was on set, I'd always kind of describe it this way. Some characters hear the music and some don't. And the music is kind of like the vibe of the apocalypse, just kind of that, like, this is goofy. You're in the world. But then there was characters like Laura, who was not allowed to be in the world. She had to be kind of if the audience was to like call it out, like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, she's also going to be the one that's going to say, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen, That's why she had like dialogue where she was like, Cuisine all'apocalypto, because I had been, people mispronounce it, so I wanted her to be the one to call that out and everybody else be like, oh, this is so obvious, it's Cuisine de l'Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So she had a blast on the film, but she would always say, she's like, gosh, I just want to have fun with you guys, but I always have to bring it down, but everybody, for the most part, everybody else was hearing the music and just kind of living in the world, which was great when we had names come out like Sorbo and Rivera and Leggero. They all kind of just jumped in. They didn't question it one bit. They were just like having a blast with it. And they were all like, Emilio showed up and he was just like, this sounds like a blast, man. Can I have a sword? And we're like, yeah, dude, we got a sword. And I was like, Richard, go. He's like, dude, I got just the one. He brought it out. He's like, how about an army helmet? I feel like I should have an army helmet. He's like, dude, I got one of those too. And then, Sorbo was like, I feel like I should have a scythe. And I'm like, all right, man, let's get you a scythe. And so then our art team built them a scythe. It was a lot of just letting them dive into the world. And then so the actor of a lot of the comedy, like, I wrote in, and when I was writing it, I was like, okay, if I feel a joke, I'm going to say it no matter how dumb it is, and then I'll go back over and do rewrites and make stuff that's, a little bit more palatable. But a lot of the jokes ended up being, when I'd get coverage on it, there was no joke that's not one person liked. There were some jokes that just one person liked, and I was just like, yeah, I'm thinking about cutting this one. He said, oh, you can't cut that joke. That's so funny. And I'm just like, okay, I guess it stays. I never really wanted that joke to stay, but
What
at
joke was that?
there's I don't even want to bring it up because it cracks me up, but there's this whole like second grade humor joke about Gray's thingy, and it's really dumb. And I wanted to cut it. I immediately wanted to cut it as I was writing it. I'm like, nobody makes jokes about thingies. Like I did that in second grade, but whatever. And I don't know. It just kind of got brought up. Well, there's going to be second graders who watch this and they're going to think that's funny, and this is kind of a kid's movie in a lot of ways. So you should keep it. We filmed it and I still kind of like gave myself an out so I could cut that out of there. But then the editor was editing. He's like, no, dude, this cracks me up every time. And I'm like, okay, I guess it stays. But yeah, I don't know. Little things like that. There's a few other ones that are escaping me right now, but a lot of the jokes actually, so there's the character Lando, who's played by Nilo Butler. He's like the movie star. He wrote a lot of his jokes. He would come to me every morning with the sides of the day and he'd be like, hey, so what do you think about this? I'd say about 80% of his jokes we kept. There was a few that I was like, yeah, man, totally do that. Just do it at the end of the scene, right? And then we kind of left on the cutting room floor. But some of my favorite jokes from the movie are ones that he pitched to me on the day. Like he calls Natasha a sexy spider. And then movie idea, Tarantula Ooh La La. He just kind of riffed that. And I love that, Then he has this whole bit where he kind of plays off of, oh gosh, that movie with Denzel where he's a gangster in the streets of LA.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And he gives this whole speech about, when everybody kind of turns on him and he like, King Kong ain't got shit on me kind of speech. That was not in the script whatsoever. And then Nilo was just like, yo, man, I really feel like I want to play off of Denzel in this and just kind of go off and say, you guys are going to be making spreadsheets in Pelican Bay, and I was like, yeah, man, let's give it a shot. Anyways, I ended up loving it, it stayed, but a lot of his jokes were that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Well, so I really enjoyed also like the whole AOL dial-up because I also grew up in the 90s. So that was like a nice little, I don't know, Easter egg.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was always in there. Like that was always the whole concept of going back to dial-up in so many ways like would suck. But at the end of the day, I don't know. There's a lot of, I don't know. It kind of hits home in a lot of ways for some people, that there's a whole like 3 generations now that it means nothing to them. But I know when we've screened this and it all kind of pops up and has that, I could just see it in the faces of like the people from our generation and before our generation that just love that. And they're just like, oh yeah, but it kind of lets you know the limitations of their technology then, I didn't want cell phones. Not that I hate cell phones in movies. I have no problem with them, but they just create the whole, well, why didn't they just call down to the Studio 99 and say, hey, don't play this, and I don't know. Lack of communication in a film makes it a little bit more interesting. So
yeah, especially during an apocalypse.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of really funny stuff about food allergies as well. What made you decide on food allergies as a plot device?
Well, a few different things. When I write a story, I usually start in the beginning and the end. I'm like, okay, I know how I want this to start, like the world I want to set up. And then I usually, get these characters and I'm like, well, how do these people with, who they are and what archetype they are, how do they end up? And I always knew I wanted the cooking show to save the town. And so I came up at the end. I'm like, okay, they need to save the town. Well, how can cooking do that? And then I just started spitballing. And actually, Zuzu Weingart, Laura in the film, is gluten-free. And I do all the cooking in the house. When he's saying things like talking about his homemade hoisin sauce and he uses coconut aminos, so all his Asian-inspired fare is gluten-free. That's what I do. I use coconut aminos because soy sauce has gluten. I just wanted him to be able to poison the robots in a way. Actually, silly enough, we were like, it's got to poison them in a way that wasn't, this is so silly, that wasn't negative, because we actually wanted to get Campbell's to sponsor us with SpaghettiOs. So we're like, well, it can't be poison. It has to be something legitimate. So there was also that. They didn't end up sponsoring us. But anyways, the script was already written and it worked, so we just kept it.
It makes it very playful, and I guess I didn't actually take note of what's the rating on this movie?
So we didn't get it like, what is it, MPAA rating, rated. Amazon puts it at 16 plus, which to me, I'm like, I don't know. I would almost put it, as we were making it, we were always kind of going for that either strong PG or light PG-13. There's very little cussing in it. I think like 3 cuss words in the whole movie. And they weren't even in the script. They just kind of were said, and we kept them. And then all the themes are pretty light. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it's a 16 plus movie, but I don't get to make those decisions. So
It kind of reminds me of there's like a really silly, I used to watch them with my daughter. It was like something kids. They had like thumb people. Do you know what I'm talking
Spy Kids.
about?
Yes.
Yes. It reminds me kind of like Spy Kids. It has that kind of humor in it. And it's very like playful in that way, but and also I feel like a lot of the effects and stuff are very similar, while the stories are very different as well.
Yeah.
But the kids have they're the 2 daughters that have a pretty strong role, and they're very funny.
Those are my children.
Oh, those are your children?
Those are my 2 girls.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, no, they love Spy Kids. We love Spy Kids and Shark Boy and Lava Girl and all those. Robert Rodriguez, he's a badass. Yeah, he makes good stuff. And I would like to say this is self-proclaimed. I'm going to say it. But like, there's things in Spy Kids that, as silly as it is, there are some thought-provoking themes, that they explore. And so we were definitely trying to do that as well. Like, we talked about Spy Kids a few times. Actually, one of our VFX artists worked on all the Spy Kids movies. So,
wow.
So kind of, yeah, he moved up to Montana and was like, hey, they're not making as many movies up here, man. Can I help you with yours? And I'm like, yes, please, but yeah, ultimate compliment that you called out Spy Kids.
Well, good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope he's not offended by this. I guess so. One theme that I did notice in there was the whole technology as the enemy, which we see in horror a lot. Was that a purposeful theme?
It might have been convenient in writing, but at the same time, I do feel that way. Like we use technology every day in all of our stuff, and I also really like Terminator, the old ones. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems like the more connected we become, the more we stress about it, everything that we don't need to stress about. I mean, it is important to stay up to date on what's going on and things like that, but everybody's just so in each other's business. And that was something when we created New Missoula, it was always a place that we were like, this is a place that people need to want to go. And we're really trying to ride that line of it not feeling like a cult, in that aspect, but just a place where there's, very minimal technology. You see people at a grocery store and you're not hiding from them because you don't want to talk to them. You're like excited to see them. You're like, oh, hey, good to see you. And just kind of, I don't know what it felt like when I was a kid in a lot of ways. I mean, this is so cliche to say, but everybody being on their cell phones constantly, kind of not really paying attention to the world around them. Because I mean, that's another thing too. It's like the world around us is gorgeous. It's beautiful. There's so much good out there, but with all the new technology, people only focus on the bad. And how it's like, of course, our generations are getting more and more anxious. It's because we're all just acknowledging the bad and no one's acknowledging the good. And there is more good than bad that's out there. And we kind of I'm kind of getting off topic of your question, but
it's okay. No, I get where you're going with portraying it as such in horror is, it's common for a reason, and it is a valid critique of society. Yeah, like Poltergeist is one. I mean, there are so many.
There are a lot, and there's a lot of good ones too. We just also as serious as we took the production aspects and all that, we also like we're making an indie film. And this isn't to dock other indie films because there's a lot of really good ones out there. But I think too much of the focus on indie films is, oh, what powerful thing can we say? And we really just focused on making something fun to watch because we're like, anymore, it seems like every indie film is this huge psychological, thing and an algorithm for this and that. And yeah, a little bit of that made it in there through just writing and what we wanted. But the biggest focus at the end of the day was we just wanted to make something fun, that people could check out for a couple hours and love it if people talk about it afterwards. But at the end of the day, if they can check out for a few hours and just enjoy themselves, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. What was the filming location like? Where did you actually film and what was the set designed and everything like? Because you had a few different locations. It wasn't like it was a one-stop shop.
Yeah, so we filmed in Hamilton, Montana, which is where they filmed a lot of Yellowstone. But we filmed at there's a movie theater that was built in gosh, I think it was 2001. But then once COVID hit, they closed. And but it was out in the middle of nowhere, Hamilton, Montana. But it was like this really nice movie theater, And they ended up hollowing out all the auditoriums and turning them into sound stages. And so we filmed a lot of it there. And then the town we built on the back lot, we actually got hit with really unhealthy levels of smoke from wildfires on the first week of production. So the first week we were supposed to be outside. John's camper was supposed to be outside. We had this whole kind of the burned down building that everybody the common area that was all supposed to be outside. And then the smoke rolled in and we were hoping and praying. We're like, oh, it'll go away before we start. And it didn't. So we last couple days before we started filming, we had to move everything inside. And so luckily we had those sound stages and it ended up working out. I would have preferred to shoot on location out back in this beautiful town that we built, but because it did have logistical problems, okay, we can't look this way because there's a whole town there. So we can only shoot it, kind of this way.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, having the studio saved us. And then when we did Lava Land, that was just the exteriors of it. That was a gravel pit just out here. I remember driving by it with the editor after he edited everything. And I'm like, oh, there's Lava Land. He's like, no, because it's small and it's not, it's like what you see in the camera is as much desert that exists down there. There's not a whole lot. So and then there's Fort Owen, which is the first settlement in Montana. I believe that's the story. That's where we filmed all the haunted forest stuff. That actually, when they go into that little house where the zombies are outside and then they see Chef John cooking his rotisserie chicken, that's one of the first buildings in Montana. So we didn't build that. It already kind of looked Tim Burton-esque when we showed up because the whole building was kind of leaning over. The doorways were all kind of crooked and not making sense. So we just kind of played with it, added some spider webs and stuff like that and called it a day.
Nice.
All in a very small area though.
What are your plans for distribution?
So right now, yeah, it's on Prime, YouTube, TV, and Google Play. Right now, our distributor's taking it to AFM down in Santa Monica to hopefully get us some foreign distribution and stuff like that. I would love to see it get on a nice streaming service. It's kind of unknown right now, doing what we can. But yeah, I would love to take it to some sort of series, after this. There's a lot of, we've noticed that the reviews we get are very polarizing. The people who like it, love it. And they're just like, oh my gosh, this is exactly, the type of movie I want to see. And then we get the other side of people who are like, well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And they're not wrong, because it kind of is. But I don't know. That's what I like about it. I think that's kind of its charm, is that it is one of the dumbest things you'll see in a long time, but it knows that it's dumb.
I mean, it's very silly. And I think that we need that kind of playful humor within film as well. And I think the closest thing I can compare it to is Spy Kids.
Mhm.
And so when I make a reel or something about it, I'll put like, if you like Spy Kids, you're gonna like this type thing.
Totally. Yeah. And it makes
Yeah.
sense. It's something you can watch with your kids and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And there's a few innuendos that they kind of hint at, but it never goes too far where like that was another thing while we were making it and why the investor was excited to be a part of it is because he has kids too. He has
Mhm.
grandkids and he's just like, it doesn't feel like I can take my kids to movies anymore because there's always something in there that I'm just like, oh, they went there, that's too far or whatever, and everybody's got, things that they don't want their kids to see. In our house, we're like, if somebody's getting, as long as it's not grotesque, if somebody gets their arm chopped off, my kids can see that. That's fine. But
Mhm.
I don't want them going and seeing any sex scenes or anything like that. Everybody's got their different things that are okay for their kids to see and stuff. But we wanted to
Yeah.
make something kind of safe for everybody.
I think it definitely is. And I didn't even think about that aspect of it, like going in. Like, I enjoyed the movie and I thought it was a lot of fun. But I think if I went in watching it as a family friendly, like sci-fi horror comedy,
Mhm.
then I would have even tapered my expectations a little bit differently.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So I just did it. I went in blind. I didn't know what to think.
That's fair enough though too. There's a lot of people who like I have buddies who are like, I'm like, dude, you got to watch this movie. But I do always like, but remember, it's a family friendly affair. And then they're all pretty big fans of it. But we could have went the complete opposite way with a concept like this and made it, you know, something like Seth Rogen or something would make. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. We just didn't want to do that.
Think it is well written and it's very fun. It like follows through. Yeah, I wasn't bored at any point. So,
Yeah.
and so that's good.
Yes.
There are definitely a lot of like really funny moments. You were able to also build tension between, especially at the end, especially you have these two really strong female roles that at the end they end up having like a face off almost.
And that was something too. I feel like we grew up in the 90s and there were so many awesome female heroes like and
Mhm.
they were badass and I wanted to like write those characters as like well there's nobody else who could have played those characters like they are strong because they are women not because we wanted to put a woman in the script and not that saying that that's a bad thing but I just feel like in a lot of the writing and all these stories and not to put any other movies down but they do the idea where like oh we can just do a gender swap and now it's women doing this and it's just like well yeah
Mhm.
but and it never really works out and I don't think it's just because I don't know this might be controversial but I hope it's not a lot of women have different strengths that men will never have
I don't think
character
that's
being
controversial.
okay great
I think that's pretty well known.
yeah just got to be careful with what you say but I just feel like Laura's character just seeing my wife grow into this mom and there's nothing in her life that she cares about more than being a mom. I was just like, well, this is a role that like I could not swap it to like a dad. I mean, even though dads have this special, bond as well, I have a special bond with my kids. That role in
You were dead.
particular, what's that? I was
You were
dead. Yeah.
dead.
Yeah. But dads are much harsher, and they're the protectors where a lot of the time the moms are the nurturers and she is in that film, but she had to assume this role of the protector as well. And that was kind of her struggle, and there are differences, but
Yeah.
I was just happy to see her take that on and incorporate whenever she was referring to her kids, she was referring to her own kids as well, so
Mhm.
and that totally showed in her performance. Like when there's that moment, it gets me every time I watch it. But when she's like, I miss my babies, I have heard her say that every time we've gone and done something, like if we're out on a little vacation, she'll just like look at me and be like, I miss my babies. So when I wrote that part, I was like, I know exactly what to say here,
Yeah.
because you say it to me all the time. So, and
It's
then,
very sweet. How did your kids do with being on set? I mean, they did really good with their roles. I thought that their acting was really good and they were funny, especially when it came to like the grandparents that they were basically taking care of that was supposed to take care of them.
yeah.
Did they really enjoy everything?
They did. They loved it. So the grandparents are my mom and dad, actually.
Oh.
It was a whole family affair, like I say. But they loved it. They actually were such troopers because they weren't supposed to shoot until like week 2. And I kind of asked for that. I was like, I want to get in our flow before I bring my kids on set. But then when all the smoke came in and we had to reschedule everything, the only scenes we were able to shoot were theirs. So like the first scene we shot was them in the beginning when, and cut and they go up and talk to John and then they film the food and then Gray comes in. That was the first scene we shot. And so they were just troopers and they really like kind of set the tone too in a lot of ways for the local cast because they'd done quite a bit of film work before. They'd done a lot of commercial work and stuff like that because they're really cute kids. But when they came in and just kind of, knew how everything flowed on set, I don't know, impressed. Like Kevin Jack's a very experienced actor, but some of the other actors hadn't done a whole lot, So when these kind of kids came in and were bosses a little bit, I don't know, it definitely set the tone. And no, it was a blast having them on set. They're actually, yesterday, Lily asked me, she's like, Dad, I think I want to start a YouTube channel. I was like, honey, you're not going to start a YouTube channel. She's like, yeah, but I think it should be Minnie and Molly before the apocalypse, and we'll just do our own show. And I'm like,
So cute.
okay, maybe you guys can do that,
Need wholesome stuff on YouTube too.
It's true. It's true. So I don't know. We'll talk about that. It's a whole thing. But yeah, no, they were great and wouldn't have cast any other kids.
What's something about the production you're proud of that audiences may not realize?
There's a lot, but I guess one thing I am really proud of is that we a lot of the cast came out and volunteered their time for the proof of concept film that we did. We did pay them a little bit, but I remember saying, guys, help me make this one. And when we make the next one, when we get the money and we make the feature, I will not recast you. You will get the starring role, and any name talent is going to come in kind of smaller positions because we did this together. We're a family. And that was something, again, my investor was really big on, and he was just like, you don't see that very often. So he was completely good with, letting the kind of the bigger names take these smaller parts and letting these people like Douglas Hall, who plays Wallace in the film, be an action star. It's something he always wanted to do, So he came in and he actually, he did have a stunt double for some of it, but a lot of the, like his fighting scenes and stuff like that, he did them himself, and he gets to see, his grandkids and stuff get to see him and they're like, oh, that's grandpa, kicking ass with a snow shovel. I don't know, those kind of things. Like it was just a once in a lifetime, hopefully not once in a lifetime, but it was just a big deal for all of us. And it just kind of meant the world.
Is there anything else you would like to share about the film before we wrap this up?
Sure. I don't know. One thing, if it doesn't come out organically, I like to say is just that we made this movie to kind of give kids today the feeling of what it was like when a movie came out when we were kids, which was, it's not a reboot. It's not a remake. It's a completely original story with completely original characters that give people something to dress up for Halloween other than Ghostface and all these. I mean, those are great costumes. Don't get me wrong. Lily was Ghostface this year for Halloween, but it's just any new costumes to dress up, that are actual costumes, besides the Joker or whatever. So we just, I don't know, wanted to do something fun like that. And
going to the Spirit Halloween and seeing like Terrifier costumes for kids, I'm like, what is happening here? Yeah. No child should be watching Terrifier. Why do they have children's costumes for Terrifier?
Yeah.
But I guess that's like the biggest, newer villain that's come out. So like a lot of kids were dressed up as that. Or I don't know, there's so many of them. Like, I know you didn't watch that movie. Or if you did, you shouldn't be.
Exactly. Like Lily has not seen Scream, but she was like, I want to be Ghostface. And I'm like, can I watch Scream? I'm like, no, you can't. We're not there yet. But yeah, I don't know, just something, we have really high hopes for this as like being a thing that starts other things. Like we have a a trading card aspect we're working with right now. We're trying to incorporate the 2D video game into an actual 2D video game that you can get on Google Play and stuff like that.
Nice.
We're actually even trying to get actual cartridges for the NES that you can put the game on and you can play it in a regular Nintendo. That's kind of my dream. I don't know if that'll actually happen, and I don't know how much they'd sell, but I would have one, you know.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Marauders!
Let's earn that Taco Tuesday. Cuisine de l'Apocalypse.
We surrender! We surrender! Oh my God, we surrender!
If you have an indie horror movie that you would like me to feature on my podcast, just send me an email to screamqueenpodcaster@gmail.com. I will watch your movie, come up with interview questions. I seem to have like a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to the kinds of questions that I ask and how I interact with my guest. So if that's something you're interested in, then just, send me an email and I would be happy to talk to you. I'm trying to do indie horror highlights twice a month from now on. All the writing, research, editing, everything is done by me. This is a one-woman show and I'm doing my very best. Thank you for listening. If you can leave a review, that is greatly appreciated. Always, always, always. I do not have my script in front of me, so it's going to sound a little different right now. And remember, food brings us together, but can also be used to kill you. Yeah, especially if you're a woman. Just a little sprinkle of rat poisoning. Until next time, goodbye.